Welcome back to Being the Best Version of Yourself. I'm your host, Dr. Kerry Heller. Today, we're going to talk about something that's really important, making time for yourself. Making time for yourself is something that's really important for several reasons. What's interesting, though, is you often hear people saying, you should make more time for yourself, you should do this, you should do fun things. The problem, though, is it doesn't always work out that way to be as easy as it might seem for a lot of people in terms of actually finding the time. For some people, when they say, I can't even make 5 minutes for myself, sometimes people exaggerate. There are other times where it is legitimate. I know from my own experience, there are some days where I literally don't have 5 minutes. I basically am doing stuff. Once I get going today, I'm doing stuff until pretty much I'm ready to wind down and go to bed. So I do recognize that there is validity in some cases of truly not even having 5 minutes. But I think, in most situations, being able to at least carve out, at bare minimum, 5 minutes for yourself, something that you enjoy doing, that you can look forward to, is really important. The benefits of doing something for yourself, whether it's, just having downtime to play on social media, reading a book, working on some sort of photo project, taking pictures outside somewhere, going for a run, whatever you're doing, the idea is that you're doing something because you enjoy it, and it's something you can look forward to. And so it doesn't really matter as much what you're doing, as long as you have something that works for you that you're interested in. And, this helps obviously in a variety of different ways. So once you've identified something to do for yourself, again, whether it's something like photography, working out, running, doing whatever it is you want to be doing, knitting, whatever that, doing puzzles, whatever the idea is, think about how can you actually fit this into your day. So look at what time you have available. For a lot of people, it's often the evenings, after things wind down. Or for some people, if they work really late, maybe they have more time in the morning. Or you take a break at some point during the day, depending on what kind of job you have and what your schedule's looking like. And so the idea is look at your whole schedule from the time you wake up until the time you go to bed and figure out where can you carve 5 minutes at minimum. Obviously more time than 5 minutes is probably ideal, especially some activities are probably pretty hard to do in 5 minutes. But the idea is that even if you're really short on time, figuring out how to knock out something to create 5 minutes to do something for yourself is really important. One of the difficult things with creating time for yourself or downtime is that sometimes there becomes this dilemma or conflict around downtime versus being productive and goal-oriented free time. So first of all, you don't have to be, people may have a difference of opinion, but I don't think you have to be constantly doing something that's truly goal-oriented 24/7. Obviously you should be sleeping for at least a part of that. But beyond that, the idea, it is important to have unstructured time and downtime. But I think figuring out what you enjoy. So for example, while there's probably some benefit of having some downtime where it's surfing the web, doing something that's completely random, in some ways you want to think about for at least some of your downtime, are you going to get more benefit out of doing something that is productive or oriented in some way? Some people feel very strongly about that, others really don't care. But I think looking at for example, if you're just when you have free time, you're just playing on your phone, going on social media, probably for some period of time that probably is very helpful. If you're spending 5 hours a day doing that, are you getting the full benefit out of it versus would you feel better, doing a photography project or, some sort of graphic design item, something that has a goal, or making, of taking old photos and making a collage. Basically thinking about a task that's obviously there's a start and an end point in many cases, but thinking about, is that going to get you more enjoyment? A lot of people I work with, will oftentimes say, I spend so much time on my phone. It's sort of fun, but half the time I realize I just spend all this time to pass the time, but at the end, when I come out of it, I don't actually feel like I've enjoyed myself that much. So if you're feeling that way on how you're using your downtime, think about maybe taking at least a portion of your downtime and finding something goal-oriented, whether it's something as simple as maybe doing a puzzle. That obviously there's a start when you start doing the puzzle, and then there's a definitive end, when it's complete. But something like that, maybe another way to kind of add in some time for yourself in a very different way. I guess one of the other issues that comes up a lot when you're thinking about this idea of making time for yourself is, the phrase suggests that you're doing it by yourself, which in theory, I think really the idea really is you're doing something you enjoy, but it doesn't necessarily mean you truly have to do it by yourself. So, for example, if you have kids and you feel like, the only time I can get to do time for myself or something I want is really another way of saying things I want to be doing, that's one thing. But you can also probably presumably get enjoyment out of spending time with your kids if that's doing something you want to be doing. If, you like playing baseball and you play catch with your kids. Or, you like watching sports with your kids. The idea here is that when we talk about this idea of making time for yourself, it's really more about doing things that you enjoy than truly always doing things that by yourself. So I just want to make that point clear, because sometimes I think that kind of gets lost when people think about this idea of carving out time for yourself. So it's perfectly fine to include time, with family, friends, other people. The idea really is doing it because you want to be doing it and you get enjoyment out of it, not because you have to or it's an obligation. Okay, so at this point, why don't you take a couple seconds and think about something that you can do for yourself? Or, as I've explained, I guess, a minute ago, it doesn't truly have to be by yourself. Something that you enjoy doing, whether it is by yourself or whether it's family, friends. Pick an activity that you can do on a regular basis. I mean, some examples I've mentioned before include running, some sort of working out, going for a bike ride, going for a hike, doing a puzzle, playing a board game with your family, watching a TV show, watching a movie, doing some sort of photo project, a computerized one, or make a scrapbook. But think for a few seconds, pick an activity that you can do, something that's very easy to access, that doesn't require a lot of equipment that you don't have, or a huge time commitment if you don't have the available time for it. So I'll give you kind of a few seconds to think about it. Okay, well, I hope that at this point you've identified something. If you haven't, that's okay too. You can definitely keep thinking about it after this podcast. Okay, so now that you've hopefully have an idea of what you can be doing to make more time for yourself or do an activity that you enjoy, think about when in the day you can do that. And let's talk a little bit about the follow-through. So for example, if let's say you came up with the idea of, I'm going to do a puzzle each day to relax. Think about when do you have time for you to do that? So does it work better in the mornings or after dinner or right before bed? So think about a time that works, and then think about how you're going to remember to do it. So for example, maybe leaving the puzzle box out throughout the day so you see it and it gives you something to look forward to. Maybe you put a time in your calendar each day to work on a puzzle. Or maybe use Alexa and have Alexa, Google Home, whatever kind of virtual assistant, even Siri, whatever kind you want to use, remind you. I mean, that's obviously another way to do it. But the idea is figure out a tangible way to remember to follow through on this idea of an activity that you want to be doing for yourself. All right, so I guess we're at that time to wrap up for today. So I hope this has been helpful in terms of getting you thinking about some ideas of what you can do for yourself to find greater enjoyment out of things in life, whether it's truly by yourself or really, as I've explained before, even with someone else is perfectly fine too. So I hope this has been useful and wish you best of luck in trying things out, implementing it. You can always come back and re-examine stuff further if you need to either adjust the type of activity you're doing or how it's implemented. There's always room for improvement and kind of pushing forward in a positive way to tweak things as needed to make things even better. Best of luck in all of this to you.